Historical Society on BCTV is supported in part by the Highlands at Wyomissing.
Hello and welcome to the monthly program of the Historical Society of Berks County. I'm your host, George M. Miser IX, President of the Historical Society of Berks County and publisher of the Historical Review of Berks County, the Society's quarterly magazine published continuously since October of 1935. Not incidentally, most back issues of the review are available from the late 1930s to the present time. It should be noted that this program is telecast live on the first Wednesday of each month at 7. It repeats this Friday at 10, Saturday at 6, and Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Welcome all to our January the 7th, 2009 program. Seated beside me is my co-host, Gloria Jean Miser. Society Curator and Associate Director Joshua Blay is beside her.
Hello, George.
Good evening. And beside Joshua is Kim Richards, Society Archivist and Director of our newly opened Henry Janssen Library.
Hi.
And anchoring the panel is Sime B. Bertlet, the Society's Executive Director.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Society's Museum, Library, Gift Shop, and Exhibition Hall are open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 to 4. The shop is fully stocked with Reading and Berks histories by a variety of present-day and old-time authors. Historical Society's Gift Shop has the largest inventory to be found locally of Reading and Berks County histories, new and pre-owned. The gift shop has a wide variety of pottery, artwork, and craft items by the best-known local artisans and potters.
We remind viewers that for $40 a year, you can be one of us, a member of the Historical Society of Berks County. Membership in the Society includes our prize-winning quarterly magazine, the Historical Review of Berks County. Membership includes unlimited use of the museum and library. Incidentally, family memberships, all living in the same house, are $50 a year.
And while we're on the subject of memberships, we remind you that Berks Community Television, now observing its 31st anniversary, is a survivor in a tough venue and a unique entity in that it's interactive. You are encouraged to call in with questions and comments.
And by the way, the number is 610-378-0426. 378-0426 with your comments and questions. Why not salute BCTV for all the great shows it provides to Reading and Berks County and send a check for $30 for a year's membership. Mail your check to BCTV, Berks Community Television, 645 Penn Street, Reading 19601. Remember, time passes, but operating expenses never go away.
Well, George, I'd like to say that I'm very happy to tell the audience that George and Gloria have done it again. We released The Passing Scene, Volume 16, approximately 32 days ago, and in that time, we've sold over 2,200 copies of this volume. It really is remarkable. If you haven't stopped by to pick up your copy, there are still some left. We have limited quantities, but there are still some available. Their pre-ordered copies have been picked up, and so we have a few that we can still disperse. But I advise you to stop by and pick up your copy because it really is an exceptional volume. As in the past, it's the same, where it's 272 pages on very heavy stock. I believe it's 80 or 100 pound, George?
80, I believe.
80 pound stock, high gloss paper, features over 350 photographs, many then and now photographs of historic places in Reading and Berks County, and it really is a great volume. There's over 4,500 indexes in the index, and it's very special. So I would suggest all of you to stop by and pick up your copy if you have not done so. Really is very worthwhile.
Is the cost still $45?
Cost is still $45, and that includes tax.
Very good.
Of the 16 Passing Scenes volumes in the series, this is the only one that contains names and incidents that involve absolutely every town, village, and hamlet in Berks County. And of course, there's a section devoted to the Reading of yesteryear.
Simon just mentioned that we have very limited quantities left of volume 16. I just did inventory of 13 and 15 as well. Although we have a little more of 13, we also have some of 15. But because of space limitations, we actually have a really good sale going on volume 13, $30, but that's cash and carry only, so that's $15 off. Usually we charge about $50 for delivery,
Yep.
but it's $30 only for cash and carry. As a cash and carry basis, just come on into the museum store if you'd like a volume 13. But 13 and 15, we do have some in stock, but the supplies are getting really low, though.
I think they're all under 400.
Yeah, I believe so. I just did the numbers, and they're really getting down there.
Right.
Anyway, George, I'd like to take a moment, if I can, to talk a little bit about something that the Historical Society has been doing. For those of you who don't know, we have many volunteers at the Historical Society, and we have one in particular that handles our IT, Internet Service Technology portion of the Historical Society. And he and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, talking about a thing called geocaching, which is site, it's a treasure hunt, a modern day treasure hunt that's done with GPSs. And he was saying, well, Simon, he said, I have something similar to that through the Historical Society's website. And I asked him to explain it to him, and he showed it to me, and I was absolutely astounded. Now, if I start looking at the screen, I'm going to show this on the screen because it really is important, and it's really a progressive step forward, not just for our organization, for any organization, because I don't know of any historical society that's doing it. And what it is a GPS coordinate inventory of all the historical sites in Berks County. And you get to it by going to our web page, and if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a link there called links. If you can see, I have it highlighted right there. We'll get a larger link in the future when we get out of the training and the development stage of this. But if you click that link, it takes you to another page called Berks History Links. And follow my cursor down to the very bottom, and it says Historical Site Mapping Project. If you click that, it takes you to a third page. And on this page, it shows a map, a Google map, of one particular area of Berks County. In this particular area, follow me down, this is the Schuylkill Canal locations in Berks County. And as you can see, there we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you click on one of those balloons, it throws up a picture showing that this particular one is the Schuylkill Canal Aqueduct near Hamburg. In addition, it gives you the latitude and longitude coordinates of that. And if the camera can pan on me right now, I brought in my handheld Garmin E-Trex. I use this when I'm hiking and when I'm fishing. And you can use these, you know, this one's inexpensive. This was less than $100. But if you can use these E-Trex to plug in the coordinates, and if you go back to that screen I showed, you can use these and plug in the coordinates for the latitude and longitude on there, and it will take you within inches of that particular coordinate. If you go down go to the next one, let's see, where are we? Let me see here. Okay, down. All right. If you go down to the next one, let's pick another one. That one will show the Indian Corn Creek Aqueduct at the Robinson's Crossing west of Birdsboro. Again, the latitude and the longitude coordinates. But we have it for many other things. Go down to the drop-down box. Not only do we have it for the Schuylkill Canal, we have it for the Union Canal, we have it for the trolley lines, we have it for the lime kilns, the covered bridges. Let's click on covered bridges. It'll bring up all the covered bridges on the county. You click on one of those, and again, it will show you this, in this case, Wirtz's covered bridge. It spans the Tulpehocken Creek, and again, the latitude and longitude coordinates. So it really is it's pretty impressive. The other nice thing about this, we have some other areas that the second, I'll get back to this first one where it says view this info on Google Earth. But if you come to the second box, it's download to the GPX file. There's many free software programs on the internet. One is called Free GPS, that if you download that, you can download all these coordinates directly from the computer onto your GPS without having to put them in manually. And then if you go down to the last one, we'd love to have you help us if you're a hiker or if you're a fisherman or a hunter and you're traveling around Berks County and you find a site that you think is noteworthy, that's a historic site that maybe might have been overgrown, that people haven't been able to find for years. You can mark it with your GPS, take a picture of it. If you have your camera with it, you can use your camera. Most people today have cameras in their cell phones. You can take it with a picture of your cell phone, and then you can come here and you can input this information right all up along here. I don't know why it doesn't show. Let me see whether I can refresh this page. No, it doesn't show. I don't know why. It showed it before, but it shows, it gives you a listing of what is in, what it's to put in. And the first line's a description, then some other information. But you can put all that in and help us, help the Historical Society, in addition to have a lot of fun, mark all the historical sites in and around Berks County. It really is great. And then if you want to, one of the other nice things on this, if you want to see if any of you are familiar with Google Earth, you can download a free download from Google Earth, and you can plot, and I'll show you this here, this will plot all the historic sites in Google Earth.
On the basis of the coordinates?
On the basis of the coordinates. Watch this. Watch this. It'll bring up, as the map comes in, watch this. This is great. I mean, when Doug showed me this, I couldn't believe it. But these are all the historic sites in Berks County. That's Neff Schoolhouse. Is that right? No, that's Kurt's Bridge. Let's do that one. Highlight that, and it'll open up, I believe. Double click right there. It'll Kurt's Mills Bridge. It'll open up the site there. You can do it that way, or you can go over here up to Tools on the toolbar, and you can play a tour where it will take and come in and give you an aerial view of all the different sites on the map.
That is amazing.
It'll do it automatically.
And it'll do it automatically. It'll open up. We were having a little bit of issues opening up the pictures in the tour, but again, it'll scroll over to all the different. There's Seidel's Creek Aqueduct. It'll show that, and generally it should open them. We were having a little bit of issues, but that's just some of the things that we're doing at the Historical Society, just to really come into the 21st century on through the use of computer technology, through the use of GPS and the coordinates, and just help us and be able to show the citizens of Berks County just where all these different historic sites are. So it's quite interesting, and I was really really pleased when Doug showed me this. In addition to this, we've always talked on the show about how you can view, if you go to our website, you can watch this television program anytime you want it by going to our website and viewing it online. Well, I would also tell you now, we have also made available that you can download the television show into iTunes, and so that you can view it on a podcast. So so if you don't want to sit in front of your computer and watch it, you can download it onto your iPod. You can take your iPod with you, and when you're just sitting waiting for a doctor's appointment or something like that, you can watch the television program on your video iPod anytime, any place. So it really is pretty neat. But we have our Doug Reinert, our IT man at the Historical Society, to thank for that, and I just thought everybody ought to know about that.
Probably the only historical society in the United States that has that capability.
Oh, this is really, I mean, this is getting to be a big thing. Josh and I are working with the Civil War Historical Consortium out of Philadelphia, because it's the 150th anniversary of the Civil War, 2011 through 2015, and they're just starting to work on this, where they're taking all the Civil War sites around the state and putting them in this kind of format so people can come, people can visit them, in addition to new technologies such as you can go to a certain individual site, and they're thinking about putting it on a cell phone so that when you get to that site, you can dial a number into your cell phone and listen to the historical significance of the site. So pretty neat. Anyway, good stuff.
That's incredible.
All right, George, I'll turn this program back over to you.
I want to comment that I'll be using one of those GPS units that Simon held up at Smallman. I'll be giving the coordinates in the next passing scene book as a for instance of the old ice dam. south of Moulton. You would go there today and try to find the dam breast, and in the summertime you would never find it under any circumstance. But I was there with one of the volunteers at the Historical Society, and I did take the coordinates, and so when I run a picture, the next time I'm going to run an old-time picture, I'm going to run a present-day picture and give the coordinates so that if you have one of those units with you and you would go looking for it, because 50 years from now, I'm sure there'll be nothing left whatever of that dam site. And by having that, you can certainly pinpoint where it was when it existed. So from the point of standpoint of historical research, it's really very, very valuable and very significant.
Yeah, and like I said, these are now less than $100. So it's really, and we're also trying to see if we can next year on the 4 Centuries and Berks Historic Property Tour, see whether we can find a way to use this in conjunction with the property tour so that people can, when they're using their Garmins in their cars or their, their Newies or things like that, they can plug in the coordinates and automatically, have their driving direction.
Yeah.
We'll cover up any mistakes that Janice and I make on the tour map. Anyway.
That's intriguing.
Yep.
Absolutely, that's intriguing. Let me see. Laura, do you want to pick up with, I
think I have something here.
Oh, Joshua, okay.
Reminding viewers, this is our January show. Our first Saturday series does take a recess in the summer, but we're also taking a recess this month, so please do come in this Saturday to see our rarity exhibit. It closes at 4 o'clock, but we will not be having a first Saturday program this month. They'll resume next month. We'll have a TV show before the February 1st Saturday program, but here's a prequel for the first Saturday program, which will actually be exactly a month from today on Saturday, February 7th. It's called Will the Real Mary Lincoln Please Stand Up? And the program will be presented by Jim Landis. And the program is about a long-standing mystery of the Lincoln family is solved through meticulous research, in-depth analysis, and years of investigation. The presentation on Saturday, February 7th, will dispel decades of misinformation and reveal the genuine story surrounding this fascinating 18th century matriarch, her family, and the Mordecai Lincoln homestead in Exeter, which is our Berks County connection to the Lincoln family. I did mention that our rarity exhibit is closing this Saturday at 4 o'clock. Over 50 different lenders contributed to the exhibit. So really, as George says here, it really is now or never to come and have a look and see what we have. The Franklin Institute locomotive model will be staying, but everything else will be returned. And we actually have somebody coming in just after 4 o'clock on Saturday, so it really will be open till 4 o'clock on Saturday. So it's now or never. And George, I think you're going to regale us with some slides.
Yes, we'll have a few slides. Okay. Little pause.
While he's getting set up, I just want to remind viewers that in instances of inclement weather, that we do follow the lead of the Reading School District, so keep an eye on the Reading Eagle and WFMZ and the other WEEU, the AM station 830.
I found the best way to do that, generally speaking, is to go to WFMZ on the internet. They have a Storm Center webpage, and if you click at the top and just click on the R, it'll automatically take you to the R listings, and if Reading School District is listed on that, it'll be on that website, and that way you can see whether it's a full day closing or whether it's a 2-hour closing, a delayed opening rather, and you can see what that time period is. If it's a 2-hour delayed opening, rather than the Historical Society opening up at 9, we'll be opening up at 11. So we generally tend to follow their lead because it is being in the school district and in the city of Reading.
Okay, yes. So, and if you're not sure whether the society is going to be closing early because of inclement weather, phone the society and see what's happening. That's the best way, rather than coming in and finding the building closed.
And if no one answers, that's a good indication.
That's a very good indication. I think we're ready for okay. We're starting at Moore's Diner. I think we ended the slide program last month. Now, these are slides that have not been shown for a long time, and I mean a long time. I pulled a box of slides off one of the shelves to bring along last month, and I was surprised at some of the great slides that were included in this collection, ones that I hadn't seen for a long time. We're at 9th and Penn, and that's Moore's Diner. Some of you will remember Moore's Diner at 9th and Penn. That was a very old building, as you can see on the corner. It opened up as the Carsonia restaurant because the fellow who who opened that restaurant, had an outdoor restaurant in Carsonia, and of course he was only open generally during the months that Carsonia was open. And when Carsonia closed after Labor Day, he was out of business. So he came here, opened the Carsonia Luncheonette, and there are signs, there are pictures that exist showing that building with the sign out front, the Carsonia Luncheonette. Then later on it became Moore's Diner.
Were they run simultaneously?
No, because once he closed the one in the park,
Okay,
he
so
was
this
here.
would be closed when the one in the park was open?
No. After he opened this place, he gave up the restaurant in the park.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was here. And Moore's Diner, remember, we used to have signs in all the Moore's Diners. Remember that? It's the strawberry pie. It's the strawberry pie. Yeah, they were famous for their strawberry pie. And that large building in the background was the largest structure that was torn down during the days of Reading's urban renewal. And that was the Penn Hotel, a really very large structure. And all those buildings that you see there were torn down for the Reading redevelopment. Two buildings down, there's like a white-fronted building with an unusual curvature across the top of the building, with like the cap of the building. That was a Nickelodeon theater called the New Victor. The old Victor stood at the side of the Astor Theater at 734 Penn, and when that was closed down, they opened here as the New Victor. It was a Nickelodeon theater in the days of the silent films. You can see there. I think at that time, when this picture was taken, it had been a cigar store.
It says Yoakum at the top.
Oh, does it? Oh, yeah, Yoakum Cigars. Ah, yes, Yoakum Cigars. And then we have Sherwin-Williams Paints. Mr. Williams used to visit Berks County years ago. Sherwin-Williams, a partnership. And Mr. Williams had a mine on Neversink Mountain where he mined ochre. And years back, every box of Crayolas, the brown in every box of the early Crayolas had a little bit of Neversink Mountain in as the pigment. In volume 14 or 15 of the Passing Scene, there's a picture of that mine up on Neversink. It faced Perkiomen Avenue, and it seemed to be somewhat behind 14th and Perkiomen Avenue.
I was going to say 14th because the old Neversink Mountain Railway runs right by it, and you can see the remnants of it.
Yeah. What, the mine?
Yeah, there's like, there's like a concrete or stone structures that supported the buildings, I think?
Oh, no, that was part of the inclined plane that you see up there. But you talk to some of the older people in Reading, and of course those folks would be well into their 80s at this time. They remember going up there and playing at the mine after it was closed. And then finally they did fill it in. Bard Hardware. Bard Hardware was one of the major hardware companies in the city of Reading. It was at the corner of 8th and Penn. I think the address actually was 800-802 Penn. When they were building the new boys' high school years back, they had boys' high school in the top floor of that building. As a matter of fact, I remember when that was there, and right before they tore it down, there was a place in there that sold floor covering, principally large rolls of linoleum. And all along the side, they used to have hitching posts for the horses, and they were still there until that building was torn down to make way for that farmer's market that's on that corner. Bard, Reber and Company. It was a partnership. The Bards that was the same family that had the famous Bards, the acrobats. Same family, and the Reber home is up there right next to Hawthorne on Mineral Spring Road. It's that home, that very large Victorian mansion that has the weeping beech tree in the front, the umbrella tree, the only one like it, to the best of my knowledge, surviving in Berks. Reading for sure. But that was Bard Hardware, and right next to it was at 804, 806, had been where Milton Hershey had his factory very early on, right before the turn of the last century, 1899. He opened up the Lancaster Caramel Company, which was the beginning of Hershey chocolates. The building burned and he left. He went up to Hershey and opened up there. But Milton Hershey had been in Reading before going up to and establishing Hershey.
Why'd they say he moved, George? Obviously the fire caused him to move, but Well, did he find the business climate better?
Apparently it was, he wanted to start a rather large complex, and he was really boxed in there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
It was a small building. It went back to Cherry, but there was major damage. It virtually wiped out the entire building. There's a picture in one of the passing scene books showing the day after the fire. Let me see. What do we have here? Okay, we're on Penn Street, and there's a large building with a sign on the front called Bonds. I remember, you remember that, the Bonds clothing store.
Sure.
It was a huge, I used to be amazed, it was a very large interior. They didn't seem to have a whole lot of stock, and it seemed to me, as a younger person, a whole lot of wasted space. They had a huge stairway going up to the second floor, and I remember staying in the balcony up there. But Bonds was one of those clothing stores that had more or less modern type clothing. Next to it was an old bank building, a very handsome building with very fine architectural work. Unfortunately, that was torn down, and at the time that a lot of these buildings left us, there was nothing in the law requiring that the buildings be well photographed prior to demolition, and we lost some great buildings in the city of Reading of which there were no drawings made, and not much in the way of photography.
Say again where that is, George?
That was between 6th and 7th.
Okay.
Yeah, Bonds was in the 600 block of Penn. It was actually, it would have been on the odd side. It would have been something like 619 Penn. It actually occupied 3 old storefronts. At one time, there was Levan's general merchandise store, a huge complex 3 stories high that was torn down years back, and that occupied the side of where Levan's general merchandise store had been. Very large complex that went back to the Civil War period. But that's the Penn Street on the between 6th and 700 on the left side going up Penn Street, the right side going down the outside of the street. That was a neat building. That was A.S. Beck's, and I took that photograph in 1970.
It's right across the street from here, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It would be across the street. Catter cornered from where we are right now. A.S. Beck Shoe Store. It was actually erected as a men's furnishing store, essentially fine suits. It was one of the good stores for men in the city of Reading years back. A very interesting building architecturally. I remember going through there in its last days. Some of the folks looking at the screen might recognize next to A.S. Beck that the drugstore, but they used to have those huge pictures of Reading all around the upper reaches of the store. You'd sit there and at the counter, and while you were having your sundae, and you'd look up and you'd see all these huge pictures of Reading. And people always say, I wonder whatever happened to all of those pictures. And the answer is, I don't know, but I do have one of them. But I have no idea what happened to the rest of them. And that large building that you see in the far left of the screen was Harold's Furniture Store. And right above Harold's was the late lamented Astor Theater, where the Sovereign Center, of course, now occupies the site.
That whole block, right?
Yeah.
That whole block has
it covers that whole block.
Excuse me.
Some people might remember in that block above the drugstore, is that the Sunray? I can't remember anymore. Was the Mohican had been up there. The Mohican store, people used to go there for fish. It was one of those well-known stores. If you wanted fresh fish, you went to the Mohican. And they were in business for a long time.
On the left, you can see a corner of that vacant block there now, too, with the awning there.
Yeah. You mean on the left?
Yeah, with like a red and maroon awning.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that was Reed's department store.
Okay.
Again, one of those huge buildings that didn't have too much business, which apparently is why they went out of business. Later on, before they tore it down, the Zesbits had moved over there, and they were there until they tore the building down. But that was Reed's department store. Nothing at all like Pomeroy's or Whitner's. At least I didn't think so. Ah, yes, A.S. The Greens, 5 and 10 cent store, taken in 1970. That Jupiter store was another like a 5 and 10 kind of thing. I don't remember it being there all that many years. That was there, then sort of taken down with that urban renewal. H.L. Green was a store that I frequented frequently because in the early days of LPs, long-playing records, they used to have a large selection of classical LPs and jazz LPs, 99 cents a piece.
Wow. On
the Ultraphonic label. And I went in there with all my savings one time and I bought 89 12-inch LPs of old-time stars at the Metropolitan Opera. Green's department store, again, wasn't there a really long time, but that picture dates from 1970, so that we know surely. And next to it was the Famous Maid store.
Wait, George, which is the one? Go to the right again.
To the right where the Famous Maid is.
Is that what the putting on the shoe?
Yeah.
Was that what that was? I remember that.
Yeah, shoe
I remember that well.
My mother was manager of Lee Millinery at
footwear clearance.
Yeah, at 636. Well, this was in the last days. You know, it was before they.
Some Weatherhold and Metzger.
Weatherhold and Metzger, right? Weatherhold and Metzger.
Yeah. Weatherhold and Metzger. Wow.
Names from the past.
Boy, they are.
But the Famous Maid was in that. That was in that same block, the Famous Maid. I know that Lee Millinery was 636, a hat store.
What's that neon sign there? That doesn't seem to fit in anything that's going on there.
Can we go forward again for that neon sign? I'm not sure.
I'm trying to figure out what that says. Green, Bush or North Bush?
Nunn Bush. Nunn Bush shoes.
Oh, Nunn Bush shoes. All right.
Yeah,
I didn't see the shoes on the bottom.
Right. Well, that would have been with Weatherhold and
Metzger. Yeah. But that's funny that you say that because, as I recall, Farr's, which was down at Fifth and Penn with the big boot out, then I don't know whether they also or whether Weatherhold and Metzger's went out of business and they picked up the Nunn Bush shoe line because they carried it for a while. And so, you know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, there's a Crystal Restaurant. Notice at the corner of 6th and Penn, we're on the north side.
Sunshine.
Yeah, and the thermometer that was there. Yeah, you had the Sunshine sign there, and down 4th and Penn you had the Reading Beer sign. And the Crystal Restaurant, which was really 4 old buildings. And when you went up, this used to fascinate me, when you went up to the top of the courthouse and you looked down to the back parts of all these buildings, you realized how ancient so many of those buildings were. Some of them had very modern facades, like up there close to 7th on the north side, and yet when you were up in the courthouse and you looked down, those were ancient buildings with modern facades in the front. The Crystal Restaurant, of course, burned down. That picture I must have taken in 1962. 46 years. A while back.
47.
Yes. I was trying to minimize it. Yeah. Years ago, Sellers and Company, clothiers used to be on that corner of 6th and Penn. And then after they moved, they were the first place in Reading, by the way, to have suits off the rack. Because prior to that, you had your suits made. And then after they moved off Penn Street, there was a cigar store in there until the time that they tore that down. And on the corner, between the Crystal and the building that you see on the far side of 6th Street had been the old hotel, the Pennsylvania House, the Hotel Penn, and latterly the Milner Hotel. Originally a 4-story building, and in the back of it they had an opera house, and some of the very famous people of Berks County played in the theater that was in the back of that building at the corner of 6th and Penn. Edgar Allan Poe played there in 1870, giving a talk on American humorists. And Blind Tom, which is a whole other story, was one of the most famous people who appeared in the Keystone Opera House. This is a remarkable picture. Penn Square in the 1940s. Now, you'll never guess where that picture was taken.
Penn Square in the 1940s.
I have a guess.
The camera position.
You're looking east, right?
You're looking westward towards towards the Penn Street Bridge. We see the Reading Beer sign over there, and then Shirley Brothers, the American House Hotel on the other corner.
Right, okay.
They're looking east.
Joe Gerhardt.
West.
Joe Gerhardt, a good friend of ours, he loved to make trick pictures, and he loved to take unusual pictures. Joe Gerhardt passed away, I guess, within the last year. Was a regular member, a long-time member of the Historical Society, always doing genealogical work in the library until he became unwell. He handmade a 1,000 millimeter lens, and that picture was taken from the pagoda.
Oh, I was going to
This picture here.
It's taken from the pagoda by Joe Gerhardt with a 1,000 millimeter lens.
Wow.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is how it truncates the buildings on Penn Street. Some of his pictures, when you look, it looks as though that each block is about 30 feet long because of the illusion that's created by that 1,000 millimeter. You know, that's surprisingly sharp when you think from how far away that was taken. Now, the Olympics in 1935 was the first time that I know of a 1,000 millimeter lens being employed for anything. What was her name? Rosen, the German.
Leni Riefenstahl.
That's it, the German photographer. Lights made for her the first 1,000 millimeter lens, and she used that to photograph the Olympics in '36.
What did you say the date of that photograph was again, George?
Oh, let me see, when was that taken? 1940s. He wasn't sure exactly when he had taken it.
There might be something funny going on here. Could you zoom at the top right-hand corner? You see the Reading Premium sign?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember the date from my research on the beer and pretzel exhibit, but I don't think they made that change until the 50s or the 60s.
It wasn't in the 60s.
That would have been Old Reading. And if it
it would have been Old Reading. You're right about that.
Yeah.
He wasn't sure. He wasn't sure, but he definitely took it with a 1,000 millimeter lens that
That's
he
the Penn
made
Street Bridge
himself.
at the top, isn't it?
Yeah.
He gave it to Albright College for someone who was interested in astronomy, and apparently at some point it was taken apart and they lost the parts. But I have about 5 or 6 of those slides that he had taken from that great distance.
9:35 in the morning.
Yeah. Joe Gerhardt. Well, this we recognize. The building on the far left, that tall building, used to be a bank. When this picture was taken, it was Worley's hardware store. We drove by recently, and I said, do you remember when they had hitching posts all along this side until fairly recent times? I don't know whether any left or not. I'm going to have to check that the next time we go by there. But they had hitching posts, I know, into the 80s for sure. Let me see. That's what, Gilbert's Furniture today.
Yes.
At the corner of 3rd and Penn.
Yes.
Gilbert's Furniture, and that was a bank building there on the left. Worley's Hardware moved away from Penn Street. You remember where they went, Simon?
Worley's Hardware. Well, Worley's Lumber, or is it? No, different.
No, same family. They wound up, hint, Queen of the Valley.
Queen of the Valley. That was a diner. But now I'm trying to think of...
Wyomissing Hills, they were sort of down, we went to Wyomissing Hills near the Iron Trust Bridge.
Really?
Down in there, Worley's had been for a while.
I do know that.
Yeah.
I think that's where the police sit now.
Oh.
to catch speeders. I think as you're going, say, towards State Hill Road, right?
Well, when you would cross over the Iron Trust Bridge at Wyomissing, remember the...
Now I know where you're talking about. I was okay.
You'd cross the bridge,
I know where
and the minute you'd cross the bridge and you were heading westward, here was the diner.
You'd be going out 422.
And down there was Worley's.
That's right. At first, I didn't know where you were talking about. I was down there closer to on State Hill Road, but now I remember that Iron Trust used to go at a catty corner.
You're right. It went at an angle.
At an angle over there.
And you remember they used to have a trolley stop over there on the north side of the street. Wyomissing Hills Trolley.
I don't remember.
Oh. Okay. I bet if you saw a picture, you'd remember.
Yeah.
You would, because it was there a long time.
I haven't thought about that iron bridge, that trestled bridge, and I can't tell you when. That's right, that was there. That's really something.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a picture of that.
I have a picture of that.
It's in one of the volumes.
It's in one of the volumes. Yeah, it is.
Huh.
Everything's in one of the volumes.
Yeah, well.
If it's not, it will be.
It will be. Now, that's interesting. You see how they used to park at an angle on Penn Street?
Because of the trolleys.
Because of the trolleys. And that was taken from Pomeroy's window. From Pomeroy's window, looking down to the Farmers National Bank, later on the Berks County Trust, later on the American Bank, later on the Meridian Bank, and I lost track. And then if you go far enough down, below that, on the north side, you have with the Marble Ranch. Is it still called the Marble Ranch today at 4th and Penn? I see that they're open for breakfast and lunch.
Look at all those cars.
And then on the other side of the street would have been the American House Hotel, later on Shirelli Brothers. I remember, and I talked to a number of people about that whenever you had snow and ice, the sidewalk at Shirelli Brothers never froze. Because when they put the sidewalk, and I saw them do it. No, they had a wire mesh under the sidewalk that was connected to electricity, and they would go down the cellar and pull the switch, and it would heat the sidewalk enough so that it wouldn't freeze over, and they wouldn't have to shovel snow. Wow. And I spoke with one of the Shirelli brothers, who told me that he had the same thing done to his house in Rifton. He had that same thing put in the sidewalk at his house in Rifton.
A lot of those are also done over at the Janssen Library. They're not hooked up.
The main building had that at some point, too. The old switches are downstairs. I think a lot of businesses did that before the energy crisis of the 70s.
At 940.
Yeah, there's some switches down there set for sidewalk melters or something. But it's right inside the back door.
To do that.
I never saw that in my time. That's interesting. But anyhow, Penn Street from Pomeroy's window from 6th down to 4th. Wait a minute. I think we're going to take a little recess and go back.
Well, I'd like to, if I may take a minute, George.
Sure.
The Historical Society has had a great number of achievements in 2008. It really was a very successful year. Whether you look at the Beer and Pretzel exhibit, the All Aboard exhibit, celebrating the 175th anniversary of the Reading Railroad, whether you look at the All Aboard fundraiser, the 4 Centuries tour. But one of the highlights of the year also was a vision that we had been working on for quite some time, and that was the renovation of the new Henry Janssen Library. It was long in coming. It took a while. It took almost the whole year, but I did survive, and it was a great experience. But with that said, I would like to introduce tonight, George introduced Kimberly Richards earlier. I would like to welcome her not only to the Historical Society but to the TV program, and just introduce the audience to Kimberly and just let her say a few words of some of the things that are going on at the Henry Janssen Library. And well, Kim, let us know, what do you got? What do you got going on over there?
Well, we're officially open, so that helps. We opened to the public on November 11th. And been going strong since then. Thanks to our volunteers, we are still doing research requests. We're getting all of our church and cemetery records on the online database. I am going to undertake a very momentous feat and start inventorying the collection. We have a very excellent index of every person that's referenced in the collection, but we don't really know what we have. We've got a number of excellent collections, and so we're going to start indexing them and trying to figure out what it is we exactly have, and we're going to take the proper steps to start preserving these collections and photographs and maps and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, for many, many years we just gathered, but then we really didn't index them in any way.
Well, you didn't inventory them in any way. They're all indexed, but we have finding aids for all the collections, but the finding aids are hit or miss. You can open up a finding aid and see exact folder listings, and then you can open up another one and not see what's actually in the collection. So we're going to go through and start trying to fix that and get things properly arranged in folders and things like that. We also got a number of really big collections coming in. I started processing the Women's Club of Reading. They were in existence between 1897 and 2008. They just went out of business or disbanded. So we started processing that collection. Thanks to George and some other individuals, we received the pen title collection, which is going to be the first collection inventoried on a database because each field will be searchable. And we're about ready to go and look at the collection up at Berksheim. So we're all kind of excited about that.
What's the Berksheim collection, Kim?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you. I'll tell them. The Berksheim collection is, it's sort of divided. We have part of that collection at the Society. We gathered material years ago. But the Berksheim collection is an outgrowth of records that were kept at the old almshouse or the poorhouse in Shillington. And those records are absolutely fascinating. They're huge ledger books with various columns, the name of the person, when did they come to the poorhouse, from what country, what was their country of origin, because there were a lot of immigrants at that time from Germany, from various places, the age of the person, and when did they die, and if they did, where were they buried, and what was the sermon over the burial. Some of those old records are fascinating. I remember going through those years back and coming away with a big smile after reading them. Well, they found a fellow lying face down in the Union Canal at West Reading with 2 bullet holes in his back. And in the last column, the last column, cause of death, drowning. So those records are absolutely fascinating. And the records essentially do not cover the more modern period. It'll be of greater interest probably to the people who are into genealogy. We won't be dealing with the more modern records because those are still covered by privacy and you don't want to invade anyone's privacy. So the records we're going to be dealing with go back to the 1800s and maybe up to 1930. They left the almshouse in about 1952 when they went out to Berksheim. And when they went out to Berksheim, it was a whole new era. Those who remember the old poorhouse, and if you do, it goes back to 1952, things were quite different there as opposed to what you would find when you went out to the more modern Berksheim. So I would imagine that the records we're going to be dealing with essentially go back to about 1840 something to about 1952 probably.
Do the records that we have now in the library on the almshouse, do they give any information on Rasmussen or Hoffman?
Yes.
They do. So we have that available now.
We have some of that material available now. And the interesting thing is that Hoffman, and this is unusual, Hoffman was highly regarded as an artist because he did a lot of those old poorhouse paintings that are legendarily valuable these days. He was so highly regarded that he had his own room with an easel and paints, which is unusual in the old poorhouse because the people essentially were in wards. Pretty big wards.
They didn't have too many easels for themselves either. You
can say that again. So that he had a very unusual setup over there. So you know in what esteem they held him. You know, years back, if you were sent to the poorhouse, well, they had a number of wings. As a matter of fact, the old poorhouse had what they called the insane wing, which they closed after they opened the South Mountain Asylum for the Chronic Insane, which was later more kindly named the Vernersville Hospital, State Hospital. But prior to the building of that, and that opened in about 1893 or so, but prior to that time, they had a separate wing in the old almshouse at Shillington for the insane. And those, I don't think we have any of the records in our from that wing and that particular time period, but we do have miscellaneous records, and hopefully that when we get those, we'll have rather complete records, because there were a lot of people who lived over in the old poorhouse in Sinking Spring. When you went there, you generally went there and you died there. There was a huge cemetery that some of the older members watching this might remember on that hillside where, is it the Governor Mifflin nursing home, that when you go 720 Mifflin Court.
Yeah.
Okay, that whole hillside used to have crosses with burials. And when they started building the enlargement of the nursing home, and they were building that nursing home there, I went over and watched very carefully the fellows who were working with the earth-moving equipment to see whether they would find anything. And I did question 2 of the bulldozer operators, asking them, did you find any, because there were actually, by 1884, there was something like 2,300 burials over there. That was it, and they were there until the 50s. And of course, in later years, they buried in that slightly other cemetery. But that whole hillside used to have crosses with burials, and there were burials in the back part of the almshouse also. But today, I guess there's housing there. But I asked the fellows, did you find anything of the burials? And either they didn't or they lied to me because they said no, they found nothing. Well, actually, when you think about it, those burials, some of those went back to the 1840s and the 1850s, so they wouldn't have too much over there. But anyhow, so much, that's for those records are very interesting, because the ones that I went through, I found fascinating.
That's great to have a place to store them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now we do.
Yeah, now we do.
Now we do. Well, great.
Joshua, did you have anything you wanted to...
Yeah, I have a couple of extra things here. I have a wonderful student from Ursinus College helping me this Christmas break. This is their last full week, then she'll be here for a couple more days next week. One of the things is she's helping me with a lot of back cataloging and going over a lot of things we have already. But this is one of the things that we've been working on. This is it's a huge forerunner of the CD. It's a Regina Music Box CD. It plays for about a minute and a half, I believe, and we have the great thing is we have a player here, so we can play this as well.
Wonderful player.
Regina, and George can help me with this a little bit, Regina was one of the most recognized brands of the business, and they were known for their superior sound quality. But they were only in business for about 25 years. The music disc fad only was around until about 1919, and Regina later got into vacuum cleaners. Vacuum cleaners.
And they're still in business.
Really? Is that Regina?
That's Regina Vacuum Cleaners, the same company.
No kid, I didn't know. Huh.
So here you can see the Regina logo in the middle, and if you look over here, if you can maybe go to the right a little bit, you can see the beginning of the record here. It's where this big gap, this little slice of pie, if you will, this is where the beginning of the record is here. If you look underneath, you want to hold the camera there, they have these little dimples on the other side. I don't know if you can get it. There we go. You can see a little better. Yeah. There's a little fine-tooth comb underneath that actuates all the different sounds, and they said in about a 13-inch long comb, you can have as much as 10,000 pins of different tones you could get out of the disc. But one of the things that surprises me, sort of getting back to our technology that Simon talked about earlier, as I mentioned, this is about a 90-minute play time, and of course it would go on again until
90 seconds, you mean?
Yeah, 90 seconds, sorry. 90-second play time.
It's an LP.
And it would go on until you either remove the record or the wind-up mechanism stopped. Now what amazes me, that if you compare the size of this disc with this memory stick right here,
yes.
This is called a 1 gig memory stick. It's a little hard to understand and explain, and I had trouble myself when I figured out the calculations, but basically if you recorded one of these into a computer file, you could fit the equivalent of 700 of these under this little plastic thing. I can't imagine how high the stack of discs would be or how heavy the discs would be, but it's always amazed me the storage capacity of today's modern media when you take, because essentially they're the same function, although you could use this for other purposes, but if you take 700 of these, equals the capacity of one of these little things. And this is not even the biggest thing you can get today.
Yeah.
And that thing in your hand isn't analog, is it? Isn't analog.
No.
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 But that is.
Yeah, it just amazes me the quantity or the progression of data storage, getting back to the data cataloging and the caching. It just amazes me.
Now, they still make those discs.
Yes, they do.
And there are a couple of outfits, one in New Mexico, one in California, are making modern discs of that size, because I bought a couple of them a couple of years ago, which we have at the Society. They were $75 a piece.
So we have a player and it still works, and we think we have about 25 or 30 of these discs, all different titles. This one is the Gondolier song, but it really is wonderful to listen to.
What makes our machine so great is that it's in a fine big wooden cabinet, and it has a double comb system. The cheaper music boxes, the smaller ones, had a single like a comb hanging down, and when that thing would go around, it would actuate those what are those things called?
Pins.
Pins?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And but the double comb one gave you double the sound and a much richer sound, which is what we have in the one that we have. So it had a 2 comb system, a double comb, and that gave you double the sound, which is, they play fabulously.
Yeah, the machine still works great today. Once in a while I'll spin it around just to listen to it.
What are the holes around the circumference?
That's how it works. So if I put my gloves back on, there's a cog that rotates, and that's what spins the disc
Okay.
around.
Like the computer printers.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like the old
yeah.
that's the old dot matrix printer
Huh.
idea. But this thing rotates. See here, there's lift it up a little bit here. And if we, there we go. You can see all the little circles around the bottom. It holds there, then there's a gear on the bottom, and the gear turns, and that's what rotates the disc around.
Neat.
It's kind of funny, we still have not yet to get away from the circle with music technology. We've gone from this to 78s to 33s.
It goes round and round.
Now we're on
true.
CDs.
Now we're at yeah, right, with CDs.
What's next?
Goodbye.
What's next?
Goodbye.
Well, according to that, tell your friends about our program, which is on live the first Wednesday of each month at 7. Thanks to program associates Gloria Jean Miser, Joshua Blake, Kim Richards, and Sime Bertlet for their part in today's presentation. I'm George Miser, your host and president of the Historical Society for the past decade. We look forward to having you join us again on Wednesday, February the 4th, 2009 at 7. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.